what truly drives us. I mean, we aim for happiness, right? We strive for success.
Those are common goals.
But even when those moments come,
Hmm?
have you ever felt like, I don't know, something deeper is missing?
Yeah, like there's a gap somewhere.
Like the engine of your motivation just isn't quite firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm. That feeling of emptiness, maybe.
Well, we're diving deep today into that very question. What if our deepest drive isn't just pleasure or achievement, but something more profound?
Something like the power of meaning.
Exactly, the power of meaning.
And to really explore this, we're focusing on Viktor Frankl's really groundbreaking work, Man's Search for Meaning.
Right, Frankl. A psychiatrist.
Yes, and imagine someone steeped in understanding the human psyche suddenly thrust into the brutal reality of Nazi concentration camps.
It's almost unimaginable.
And Frankl didn't just endure. He came out with this extraordinary insight. He argued that our primary motivation isn't really the pursuit of pleasure, like Freud suggested, or even that striving for power that Adler talked about.
So, not pleasure, not power.
What then?
But the fundamental human need to find and, crucially, create meaning in our lives. Basically, Frankl argued that wanting to matter is our strongest drive.
Wow. Okay, so a man who witnessed humanity at its absolute worst
Yes.
concluded that our core quest is for a life of purpose.
Yeah.
That's significant.
It really is.
And this isn't a one-time discovery, is it? This sense of meaning can change. It evolves through our lives.
Absolutely. Logotherapy, which is Frankl's therapeutic approach, it recognizes this dynamic nature.
So what gives life meaning now might be different later.
Exactly. What imbues our life with significance at one stage may very well shift as we grow, as our circumstances change.
And that feels particularly relevant for you, the listener, who's constantly learning and adapting.
Precisely. Frankl's insights aren't just, abstract philosophy. They provide a real-world framework.
For navigating challenges,
Right.
finding direction.
Yes, exactly. We're talking about those moments where things suddenly click, where you understand something fundamental about what keeps you going. Those aha moments.
Right. Surprising perspectives on motivation.
So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack Frankl's core argument, look at his personal story, which is just incredible.
Incredible, yes.
And more importantly, look at the tangible ways we can all tap into this power of meaning in our own lives, drawing directly from his book.
Sounds like a plan. Where should we start?
Let's start with the unimaginable, the concentration camps. What was the question that sort of haunted Frankl there?
Well, his central question was stark. How did anyone maintain their sanity, their will to live, amidst such utter psychological devastation?
Yes,
And his observation was equally stark, really cutting through any illusions about human nature. He said, it's not about human cruelty, it's about human capacity.
Human capacity, for both good and bad, I suppose.
Exactly. He witnessed both the most horrific brutality and the most astonishing resilience firsthand.
And that resilience is key here, right?
The key insight, yes, that even in utter deprivation, the human mind actively seeks and creates meaning to survive.
And it was that resilience that really struck him, wasn't it? He started to see patterns in those who managed to hold on.
Precisely. Frankl noticed that survival wasn't necessarily about physical strength alone.
Oh, interesting. So what was it then?
The prisoners who endured often possessed this inner fortitude, a connection to something beyond their immediate suffering.
Like what? Hope?
It could be hope for the future, yes, or a relationship they long to return to, or even a profound belief that their suffering somehow held significance.
This idea of inner strength manifesting in different ways is fascinating. Can you share some specific examples of what Frankl observed?
Oh, there were many. Some found a kind of mental escape by vividly reminiscing about loved ones, imagining conversations.
Holding on to those bonds.
Clinging to those emotional bonds, yes. Others discovered fleeting moments of beauty even there.
Beauty in a concentration camp.
A sunset, a snatch of birdsong, tiny reminders of the world outside the wire.
Wow.
And incredibly, humor also play a role.
Humor, really?
Yeah, as a way to connect with others, to maintain a sense of self, in the face of utter dehumanization.
Shield, almost.
In a way. And then there were these truly profound acts of selflessness.
Like what?
Prisoners sharing their meager rations with someone they believed needed it more, just demonstrating that enduring human capacity for empathy, even in extremis.
It's hard to even imagine finding those inner resources in such circumstances.
It really is.
And this leads to what many consider one of Frankl's most profound insights, doesn't it?
It does. Frankel identified what he termed the last of human freedoms.
The last freedom.
The ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
Even when everything else is controlled.
Especially then. This is where the concept of meaning truly solidifies. He famously said, suffering in itself is meaningless.
Okay.
We give our suffering meaning by the way in which we respond to it.
So the meaning isn't in the suffering, but in our response to it?
Precisely. That power to choose our response, even when all external freedoms are stripped away, becomes this fundamental source of meaning.
That's a really powerful reframe. We often focus on what's beyond our control, right?
I do. All the external stuff.
Frankel is pointing to the immense power within our control, our attitude.
Exactly. And his ideas about what truly motivates us were quite different from the dominant psychological thinking of his time, weren't they?
Very different, yeah. Freud, Adler.
Absolutely. While prevailing theories focused on pleasure or power, Frankel offered this radical alternative rooted in the human need for purpose.
You mentioned Freud emphasizing the pleasure principle.
Right, the pursuit of pleasure as the primary driver, and Alfred Adler highlighting the striving for power and superiority.
But Frankel, drawing from his own, well, harrowing experiences and his clinical work.
He posited that the fundamental human drive is the search for meaning.
So for Frankel, it wasn't about simply avoiding pain or trying to dominate others,
Yeah.
but about finding something to believe in, something to strive for that felt deeply significant.
Exactly. He argued that when our actions align with our deepest values, with what we find truly meaningful, that's when we experience a profound sense of fulfillment, a deep sense of being.
And the flip side.
Well, conversely, a life lacking this sense of meaning can lead to feelings of profound emptiness, what he called the existential void.
That feeling of, what's it all for?
Right. Which can be deeply, deeply unsettling.
And it wasn't just Frankel's personal experiences that led him to this conclusion, was it? There's broader evidence suggesting meaning is crucial for well-being.
Indeed. Think about that study you mentioned from Johns Hopkins University.
Right, the students.
The vast majority of students, part of your learner profile,
Yep.
people actively seeking knowledge, understanding they prioritized finding purpose and meaning in their lives as most important.
More important than other goals.
Seemingly so for many of them. This highlights a fundamental human desire that resonates across different experiences and strongly supports Frankel's core thesis.
Okay, so we're understanding the profound power of meaning, especially when facing immense adversity. But how do we actually find this meaning in our everyday lives? Frankel outlined 3 specific pathways, didn't he?
Yes, he identified 3 primary avenues through which we can discover meaning. The first is through pursuing a life task or creating a work.
A life task,
Yeah.
like a mission.
Sort of. It involves dedicating ourselves to a cause, a project, or a goal that we feel is truly significant. A key takeaway here is that our work, in its broadest sense, can be a powerful source of meaning.
And Frankel's own life provides a compelling illustration of this, doesn't it? His decision to remain in Vienna.
With his parents, yes, despite the very real danger.
What prompted that?
That moment when his father showed him that religious relic, the piece of marble from a synagogue,
Yes?
with the engraved commandment to honor his parents, that became a powerful guiding principle for him, a task he felt morally compelled to fulfill.
And then later, in the camps.
Even within the horrific confines of the camps, the loss of his manuscript.
The one containing his life's work.
Exactly. That loss became a renewed life task, a powerful driving force that fueled his unwavering will to survive and rewrite it.
So the idea of the task kept him going.
Absolutely. He famously observed that those who knew that there was a task waiting for them to fulfill were most apt to survive. The power of having a future-oriented purpose cannot be overstated.
That's incredibly potent. The idea that having something to look forward to, something you feel driven to complete, can be a literal lifeline.
A lifeline, yes.
Okay, what was the second path to meaning that Frankel identified?
The second path is through loving selflessly.
Loving selflessly.
And this encompasses far more than just romantic love, you know?
Right. What else does it include?
It includes compassion, empathy, deep and meaningful connections with other people, and even a profound connection with the beauty and wonder of the natural world.
Nature again. Interesting.
It's about those moments when we transcend our own immediate needs and act in service of something or someone else. The essence here is that deep connection and care for others can be a profound source of meaning.
So it's about those deep human bonds and that feeling of contributing to something larger than ourselves.
Precisely.
And Frankl saw this as crucial not just for others, but for our own sense of self, right?
Absolutely. He believed that true self-actualization isn't achieved through, like, self-obsession,
Right.
but rather emerges as a byproduct of these selfless acts of love and empathy.
So by focusing outwards, we find something inwards.
In a way, yes. When our focus shifts to the well-being of others, we often discover a deeper, more profound sense of meaning in our own lives.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third path, which might seem a bit unexpected,
Huh?
is through suffering bravely.
Yes, and this is a critical and often misunderstood aspect of Frankl's philosophy.
How so? He wasn't saying seek out suffering, was he?
No, no, absolutely not. He wasn't suggesting we should actively seek out suffering, but rather that when we inevitably face unavoidable suffering,
Which we all do eventually.
our attitude towards it, our response, that is what can imbue it with profound meaning.
So again, it comes back to the response.
The key insight here is that even in pain, we have the power to choose our response. And that choice can be a source of meaning.
You shared a really moving anecdote earlier about an older man that powerfully illustrates this point.
Ah, yes, the grieving widower. A man grappling with deep despair after the loss of his wife sought Frankl's counsel.
He felt life was meaningless without her.
Utterly devoid of purpose, yes. Frankl asked him to consider what would have happened if he had died first and his wife had been left to grieve for him.
Oh,
The man recognized immediately that she would have suffered just as deeply.
of course.
Frankl then pointed out that his current suffering, though immense, was the price he paid for the profound love he shared with his wife. And in a way, his grief spared her that same pain.
So his suffering became a sacrifice.
Exactly. This shift in perspective, recognizing that his suffering had a purpose, a meaning as a testament to their love, enabled him to bear it with a sense of dignity.
That quote comes to mind.
As Frankl so eloquently stated, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice.
That's a profoundly different way to think about hardship, isn't it?
Completely different.
It's not about avoiding suffering at all cost, but about finding the inherent value, the lesson, or even the act of sacrifice within it.
Exactly. It underscores that even in the darkest and most challenging times, we retain that fundamental human freedom.
To choose our attitude.
And in making that choice consciously, we can discover meaning where it initially seemed utterly impossible.
So to bring it all together for you, the listener, we've explored how Viktor Frankl, through his unimaginable experiences, came to understand that our primary human motivation isn't simply the pursuit of pleasure or power,
Right.
but a deep and abiding need for meaning.
A fundamental quest.
And he identified 3 core pathways for discovering this meaning: through engaging in purposeful work or a life task, through experiencing and expressing selfless love,
Connect.
and through the courageous way we choose to respond to unavoidable suffering.
That's a concise overview of Frankl's central message, yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, and it's crucial to remember, as Frankl himself constantly emphasized, that the search for meaning is an intensely personal and unique journey for each individual.
So comparing ourselves isn't helpful.
Rarely helpful, often counterproductive. Your path is yours alone.
And ultimately, despite witnessing the absolute depths of human suffering, Frankl's message is fundamentally one of empowerment, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Very much so.
He shines a light on our innate capacity to choose our attitude, even when external circumstances feel completely beyond our control.
That really makes you think about how often we feel powerless when perhaps maybe we have more agency than we realize.
More inner freedom.
Absolutely. He underscores that this inherent power to choose our attitude is not merely a mechanism for survival,
No.
but a fundamental source of our personal growth and our enduring freedom.
So, as you, our listener, take a moment to reflect on this deep dive into the enduring wisdom of Viktor Frankl, consider this.
Yeah.
Looking at your own life right now, what aspects resonate most strongly with these ideas? Meaningful tasks, the power of love, your own responses to the challenges you face.
It's a good question to ask yourself.
What might be your constantly evolving sense of meaning in this moment? It's a question we're sitting with, isn't it? A lifelong exploration that is uniquely yours.